Hi, everyone, and welcome to the video lecture, Medical Legal Death Investigation. This lecture corresponds with the first part of Chapter 5 from your textbook. Medical legal death investigation is a broad term that's used when a questionable death is reported to the police. What counts as a questionable death is up to the investigator, but typically these deaths involve a cause of death that's not immediately obvious or immediately clear. For example, let's say investigators are called to a house for a wellness check and they find a 95-year-old female deceased in her bed. There's no signs of struggle, no injuries, and family members who called in the wellness check tell police the 95-year-old had terminal cancer and was living in hospice care at her home. This type of death would not raise any suspicions, right? There's no signs of anything untoward happening in the house, and the physical health history indicates death was likely natural causes due to the terminal disease. However, what if the investigators called for that wellness check and they found a 35-year-old female deceased in her bed? Still no signs of struggle or injury, but family members state that the female has no physical health issues that they know of. This type of situation would be considered a questionable death because the cause of death is not immediately clear, and investigators will need to investigate to determine exactly what happened to cause this individual to die. Now, who conducts a death investigation? That's a big question. In the United States, there are two main systems used to investigate deaths. When the United States was founded, we relied entirely on the coroner system. Coroners were elected or appointed at the local level, and they investigated the deaths within their specific jurisdictions. The problem is that coroners are usually lay people, meaning that they do not have professional training in death investigation. Coroners are also appointed or sometimes elected. In fact, in some areas, a person becomes coroner simply by default as part of the job responsibilities of another appointment. For example, in Nebraska, the county attorney, which is an elected position, also serves as the county coroner. So that means that the coroner, the person who is in charge with investigating death, has a legal background and not a medical background. As you can guess, this system has led to a series of highly publicized mistakes where coroners improperly investigated or diagnosed a cause of death. As a result of these mistakes, many jurisdictions have adopted a medical examiner system. The medical examiner system requires a trained, licensed medical professional to be responsible for death investigation. This ensures that someone with a medical background is involved in identifying the cause of death. Another benefit of the medical examiner system is that a medical examiner, or an ME, is a full-time position. So the role of death investigation is not relegated to someone who already has a full-time job in a different area. Another professional also associated with death investigation is the forensic pathologist. Pathologists are licensed medical doctors that specialize in the diagnosis and treatment of disease. So forensic pathologists apply that disease specialty to legal situations. A forensic pathologist include conducting autopsies, examining body tissues, and testing body fluids in the lab. Forensic pathology is a highly specialized occupation. It requires the individual to obtain a medical degree, then complete a multi-year residency focusing on pathology as a whole, and then at least 1 year fellowship in forensic pathology specifically. So you're looking at least 13 years of schooling, if not more. The use of medical examiners versus forensic pathologists varies by jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions require only that the medical examiner's office use licensed medical professional, regardless of their particular specialty, whereas other jurisdictions do require that the medical examiner's office be staffed by trained forensic pathologists. Although the medical examiner system has benefits compared to the coroner system, both systems are still in place throughout the United States. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention keeps track of the laws regarding death investigation in each state. And on the next couple slides, I'll show you some of these maps. The map on this slide shows you the distribution of coroner and medical examiner systems across the US. The blue shades indicate that the state uses a medical examiner system, either at the state level or the county level. The green indicates that the state uses a county-based coroner system, and the lightest shading indicates that the state uses both medical examiners and coroners. You can see that Texas is highlighted this way. While larger cities like Dallas and Houston have a county medical examiner, smaller counties, including Smith County, operate under the coroner system. One of the patterns you can see from this chart is that the coroner system is much more likely to be represented in rural areas, whereas places with more urban areas are more likely to use the medical examiner system. That makes sense if you think about population density. In order to accommodate a medical examiner office, the county or the state must have enough death investigation needs to sustain one or more full-time office. In more rural counties where the population is more spread out, the death investigation needs can be better accommodated with county-based non-full-time staff. Like I said previously, one of the primary differences between the medical examiner and the coroner system comes from the required training and education. Medical examiners, being licensed physicians, have been trained in medical procedures and can complete autopsies. Coroners may be lay people without any formal training or qualifications specifically relating to death investigation. However, even in the areas today where the coroner system remains in place, there is usually a much stronger emphasis on the education and training of coroners within the state. This map from the CDC shows you that 4 states currently operating under a coroner system have laws requiring the coroners to be licensed physicians. The cream-colored states do not legally mandate coroner training, but many of them maintain unofficial qualification guidelines. For example, Texas contracts with a private company called Forensic Medical Management Services of Texas, and they provide forensic pathology services to the East Texas area. So even though Smith County is under a coroner system, death investigations are still handled by a team of trained forensic pathologists and medical legal death investigators. Here's a chart that breaks down the differences. I've repeated most of these, but this is kind of a simplistic thing. If a coroner's office contains a forensic pathologist, then they are qualified to complete autopsies, but that's not the standard for the coroner system. In most jurisdictions, medical examiners are appointed, like I said, and coroners are usually either appointed or elected. The problem with the medical examiner system is that it can be challenging to hire enough full-time licensed medical doctors to investigate every death in your jurisdiction, particularly in larger cities where questionable deaths occur every day. For that reason, modern death investigation uses medical legal death investigators, or MDIs. These investigators are usually employed by the medical examiner's office, but they're not required to be licensed medical doctors. These individuals will be the first death investigator on the scene, and they'll conduct a preliminary investigation in order to determine whether or not a full autopsy and questionable death investigation is warranted. The American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators is a professional certification board that provides basic and advanced certification for medical legal death investigators. While there are no formal educational requirements to become an MDI, the American Board notes that applicants should have a combination of skills and education relating to both medicine and law. All right, well, that concludes the first part of the Chapter 5 lectures. Join me in the next lecture video as I talk about the cause and manner of death investigation.